All right. Hey, let's go live. How's it going, everybody? Chuck Holton here, coming to you from West Virginia, where it is finally warming up and the snow is melting away. And that's a very, very good thing because it's been colder here than it was when I was in Greenland a few weeks ago. And we got a lot to talk about today. We're talking about Israel is basically going to be setting red lines for President Trump as Prime Minister Netanyahu is en route now to Washington, D.C. to meet with President Trump. And that meeting got moved up. It was supposed to be on the 18th, but it got moved up. So that shows that there's some real urgency to this meeting. And they believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to be talking to President Trump about, look, if you're not going to strike Iran, we are going to do it. And here's why, because Iran is crossing some things that we've set out as red lines for Israel. And so we should hope, at least, that at the very least, President Trump will give that his blessing and say, well, if you need, you do what you got to do, rather than putting pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to not strike Iran so that President Trump can try to somehow make a business deal with them or something like that. We're going to talk all about, they're going to break all that down for you. And before we do, let's listen to a word from our sponsor.
Folks, the American healthcare system isn't struggling, it's a racket. Big Pharma charges luxury car prices for pills that cost pennies to make, and insurance companies profit by hoping you stay just sick enough to keep paying, but not sick, not getting better. So, you know, I don't wait around for permission to take care of myself. One thing most people never think about is blood flow. If your blood isn't moving, oxygen isn't moving either. And so your brain gets foggy, your muscles gas out early, and there are a few other critical systems that start filing formal complaints as you get older. And so that's why I recommend Blood Flow 7 from Juvenon. This product increases nitric oxide levels by 230%. It also helps open up arteries by 62%, which means circulation improves where it actually counts. Only one dose a day, no caffeine, no stimulants, and no jittery response. For me, what that means is better stamina, more energy, sharper focus, and support for my heart, which is important. It's doctor formulated, science backed, and it's made with high quality natural ingredients. And you know what? If it didn't work, I wouldn't be wasting your time talking about it. So if you want to try it for yourself, go to bloodflow7.com/hot. That's bloodflow7.com/hot, or just click the link below and take a look.
All right. Well, thank you to Juvenon for sponsoring today's podcast. And thank you for you to all of you who are here coming in from Georgia and Denmark and Quebec and Hawaii and Ohio and Finland and all over the planet. It just amazes me how many people are watching this show from all over the place, and really how you help the Hot Zone punch well above its weight. I was looking at another YouTube channel for some people that I know today, and they have about twice as many subs as we do, and they make much less per thousand views, just because their demographic is much younger people who don't have any money. Our demographic is people 65 and over. I didn't choose that, you chose me. So thank you for watching this show. I know that you have lots of options in terms of how you spend your time every day. And believe me, I do not take it lightly that you decide to spend an hour of your time or whatever you can spare listening to this show. And so we're doing our best to try to bring you the best possible content we can, information you're not going to hear anywhere else. I'm spending a lot of my time. I've been to 13 countries in the last 30 days, traveling to places where things are happening so that I can find out what's really going on and bring it to you. And so if you appreciate that, go over to chuckholton.com and you can sign up over there for extra content. You can subscribe and get notified when I have live hits on Newsmax or put stuff up on cbn.com or whatever other interviews and live hits that I'm doing. You get monthly phone calls with me, all sorts of stuff. You become a supporter over there. So just toss me a few bucks a month and you get lots of good stuff and help keep us on the air. So thank you very much for all of you who do that. Now, let's talk about what's going on. There's just so much going on in Israel all the time. And it's been going on for so long that it's almost stopped being news in the United States. And I think that's unfortunate, because if you care about Israel, you should care about all these things that are happening to them. They are still in the thick of it. They're fighting a multi-front war. In the last 48 hours, they've had important major operations in Lebanon, in Syria, in Judea and Samaria, and in Gaza. And so it's obvious that this war is not over yet for the Israelis. Now, let's start with Lebanon, and we'll talk about what's going on in all these different places. First of all, the IDF made an incursion into Lebanon, which hasn't happened in some time, and that's remarkable. What they've been doing has been they've been bombing Hezbollah operatives, anybody who's a threat to Israel. As you know, they've got a very, very robust intelligence gathering capability inside Lebanon. And so they find, fix, and finish bad people in Lebanon who want to do bad things to the Israelis on a daily basis almost. And normally that comes at the end of a drone strike or an airstrike from a fighter jet or something like that. But in this case, the IDF Special Operations Unit from the 210th Bashan Regional Division went into Lebanon about 5 kilometers across the border and raided a building in or near the village of Habaniya in the Hasbaya district. Now, they apprehended a senior member of Al-Jamaa al-Islamiyah. It's also known as the Islamic Group. It's a Sunni Islamic terror organization that's affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. They have coordinated in the past with Hezbollah, and they claim attacks against Israel during the conflict. So this guy they determined that it was better to capture him than to just drop a warhead on him. And so they sent special operations troops into Lebanon to do that. The raid was conducted on foot, meaning they humped it 5 kilometers in the middle. That's very dangerous. There was apparently no reported exchange of gunfire or clashes during the capture. They grabbed this guy and they took him back to Israel for interrogation. They did find weapons in the building he was in, and there are other details that were not really that they haven't been corroborated yet, so I'll leave those out. Separately, but about the same time, the IDF conducted other actions against Hezbollah in Lebanon. They killed a senior Hezbollah artillery commander named Ahmad al-Salami, who was, a pizza delivery guy on the side, apparently. But this airstrike took him out, and that was in a different area. He was helping to rebuild Hezbollah's artillery capabilities, which is a violation of the ceasefire agreement that Hezbollah never agreed to. And so there's that. They also, there are reports that the IDF killed 2 other Hezbollah operatives in 2 other incidents. So the direct capture of this guy from Al-Jamaa al-Islamiyah is remarkable for sure. Now, about the same time, within hours of that operation, there was another operation that went down in Syria. In this case, the Israeli intelligence operatives found a fairly sizable weapons cache that they believe belonged to PIJ. PIJ is, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They've operated out of Hamas-controlled areas in Gaza. But remember, Hamas and PIJ also have operatives in Judea and Samaria, in the Lebanese areas up in the north, and in Syria as well. And so a lot of those guys are typically there, not necessarily to plan and carry out attacks against Israel from Syria, because there's some difficulties with doing that, like the IDF actually holding territory inside Syria right now. But their job is to help with the smuggling networks to smuggle weapons and explosives and stuff to their guys that are in Gaza and elsewhere. So while that threat was being dealt with, and that was a very large explosion, the Israelis have found more tunnels inside Gaza and have been blowing those up on a fairly regular basis. But there were attacks against Israeli forces from Hamas operatives inside Gaza. And so they took care of business and eliminated several terrorists who had crossed the yellow line and were approaching Israeli forces as well. So things haven't stopped in Gaza. Now, on the topic of Gaza, it's also important to point out that more research has come out about the number of deaths that have happened in Gaza during the war. As you know, Hamas and the Gaza Health Ministry, which is an arm of Hamas, has been saying that there's over 71,000 people killed so far in the war. Well, new information coming out from Hamas, actually. I don't know if they really meant to put this information out, but they sort of accidentally did, because they announced that they're going to be paying support payments that pay for slay, like the Palestinian Authority has done. The support payments that amount to several $100s a month to the families of 51,000 fighters who were killed fighting Israel. Now, if you recall, going back during the fighting in Gaza, the media was coming out with numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry saying that 70% of the dead were women and children. Well, now Hezbollah has said that they're going to be paying support payments to the families of 51,000 fighters who were killed. So if 71 plus thousand people total have been killed, that means only about 20,000 of the dead total were not military age males that were fighting the IDF. And that would represent the lowest casualty to insurgent death ratio of any modern conflict in our lifetimes. I mean, the United States very often killed like 3 civilians for every 1 insurgent, and we didn't mean to, but just that's the nature of war. And so Israel's policy of warning people before they blow up a building, sending messages and leaflets telling people where they can go to be safe and where they should get away from, did actually work. Now, President Trump talked about this in a press conference, and let's see if I've got that here.
Hamas has lost 58,000 people. That's big retribution. That's big retribution. People understand that. So, no, I think they're all tired of fighting, and this really gives the whole Middle East. This is beyond Gaza. Gaza is very important, but this is beyond Gaza.
So he said 58,000 Hamas fighters have been killed. So again, that number is right in line with what the IDF has been saying all along, and not in line with what Hamas has been saying all along. So what we're getting more and more proof every day out of Gaza that A, there was never a famine in Gaza. Nobody starved to death in Gaza. And B, the people who died by and large were all people who were fighting the IDF. And you know what? You pay your money, you take your chances. Look, every civilian death is a tragedy, without a doubt. War itself is a tragedy. And the Israelis would have loved nothing more than to never have a war with the people of Gaza, but they were not left that option when October 7th happened. So they had to do something about it. Now, as you know, all of this has been facilitated and orchestrated by Iran. So Iran is still trying to prop up its failing proxies in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, in Hamas, in Gaza, everywhere, and especially in Judea and Samaria. As the United States continues to move men and materiel over to the region. And what we're seeing there is the largest buildup of American forces since the Gulf War. So there's a very good chance. There's almost a 0% chance. The experts say it's a 70% chance that there will be a shooting conflict, kinetic conflict between the United States and Iran in the near future. The experts say 70%. I would say it's higher than that, because you're just not going to take that many troops over there and then not do anything with them. But it's President Trump, so we never know. And this is what concerns Israel. Israel is looking at what President Trump is doing in trying to negotiate with Iran, knowing that Iran never lives up to its commitments when it negotiates something. They always cheat, knowing that they are basically playing Washington for a fool, because they have no intention of giving up their nuclear program. They have no intention of stopping what they're doing with their proxy forces around the globe. So talking about it is sort of a fool's errand. But President Trump wants to give peace a chance, and you got to hand it to him. That's important. I mean, that's the kind of thing we want out of our politicians. It's not that they're going to rush off to put our troops in harm's way, but they will give peace every opportunity before they pull the trigger on kinetic warfare. So I'm not criticizing President Trump for doing it, but what I am a little confused, because, you know, we talked about the reasons why I thought that if there was going to be an attack, it would be this last weekend, because Ramadan is coming up. The United States, as far as I can tell, has never initiated a major military operation against a Muslim foe during Ramadan. Now, we have been fighting during Ramadan for 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq, but we never initiated a major military operation during Ramadan. And that is just out of respect for Muslims worldwide. And because, you know, the political capital that we would burn by attacking a Muslim country during their holiest month would probably outweigh the benefits of whatever we accomplished by doing that. So Ramadan starts about the 17th of this month. So we still have a few days if we wanted to kick this thing off before that. But there was one sort of variable that I didn't take into account, and that was Vice President Vance and his wife visiting Armenia and Azerbaijan this week. So yesterday, Vance was in Armenia. He's the highest ranking American diplomat ever to visit the country of Armenia in history. And he inked a deal with Armenia on a new commercial nuclear plant, that sort of thing. Then he was off to visit Azerbaijan today. And since those countries are neighboring to Iran, I don't think it's likely that Trump would order an attack on Iran while the vice president is in the region, because that would be a great opportunity for Iran to just try to saturate. I mean, Armenia doesn't have air defenses basically at all. I mean, not much at all. So if Vice President Vance was in Armenia, right on the border with Iran, and Iran wanted to, they could just throw everything they've got at Yerevan and have a fair to middling chance of actually taking out the American vice president. So I think it's not likely that we're going to kick off an operation while this pre-planned trip that's been planned for a while of the president and the vice president and his wife. We're going to let them finish their trip to Azerbaijan, and once they leave, then okay, we can talk. In the meantime, as I said, President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu are going to meet in Washington, I think tomorrow, maybe tonight, and they're going to discuss their plans. And what Prime Minister Netanyahu said was, look, I'm going there to explain to President Trump that the Israelis have some red lines, that if the United States is not going to attack and take out these threats to Israel, Israel will do it unilaterally. We're not asking permission. We're saying they will do it unilaterally. And so if you don't want Israel going off and attacking Iran without coordinating with the United States, we need to get on the same sheet of music with regards to these red lines. Now let's talk about what these red lines are. First of all, Israel claims that they have intelligence that shows that the Iranians are very rapidly building up their missile capability once again. During the 12-day war in June, the Israelis managed to knock out 35 to 40%, or maybe 45% of all of the medium range or long range missiles launchers that Iran had. And that dramatically limits the number of missiles that Iran can fire at any given time. And keep in mind, it takes about 8 hours to reload one of those missile launchers. So it's not like you're going to it's not like artillery where you just shove another one in and fire it as fast as you can, right? What is everybody saying? No, Julie, no, Julie. No, 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 no. Chuck, do you think Netanyahu had something to do with Charlie's assassination? Oh, good grief. No, I don't. I'm not going to belittle you for asking that question, but I'm going to say that the very concept, the precept that Israel would have a reason to do that, or would be evil enough to orchestrate some blue-haired liberal whack job Antifa guy to go get up on a rooftop and shoot Charlie Kirk is fundamentally flawed. That's illogical on its face, and really it plays into the anti-Semitic tropes that you hear from people like Candace Owens and others. And that brings me to a point I wanted to make about anti-Semitism. We've seen a real rise in anti-Semitism, not just among the left, who already hated Israel, but among the right. And so there's a real schism right now on the right in America, because there are a bunch of people that are under the sway of folks like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and others, who are very much against Israel as a nation. So they say that they what they really don't like are Zionists, okay? But I don't think that word means what they think it means. And Marco Rubio actually had a very good video he put out addressing this issue that I think is totally worth watching. It's a couple minutes long, but take a look at this.
Anti-Semitism is the world.
Whoop, hang on.
Tree. And given that we are all here today, it is also the world's most futile. Egyptian pharaohs, Roman emperors, Persian shahs, and Middle Eastern despots have sought to destroy the nation of Israel. Adolf Hitler dreamed of a world without Jews, an idea he shares with Hamas.
And
today,
Candace
these
Owens.
regimes and empires have crumbled into dust, but Israel stands, and the Jewish people prosper. I pray for the day when the entire world will recognize the futility of anti-Semitism, when leaders will abandon self-destructive hatred and forge a new future in partnership with Israel by building on the Abraham Accords. Under President Trump's leadership, there are signs that the future may be closer than we dared dream. But only if we can overcome the futile, persistent evil of anti-Semitism can we reach that future.
So, it jumps out at me that people like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are actually on the same side politically as the Hamas terrorists who murdered women and raped them and killed little babies and, shot 1,200 people on October 7th. There was even a woman who is on President Trump's Religious Freedom Forum. She's a former Miss California, and she's got a hyphenated last name and all this kind of stuff. But she's apparently a conservative, and she went off at a forum yesterday talking about how people shouldn't call Candace Owens an anti-Semite because Christians around the world are against Zionism, against Israel. They are on the side of the Palestinians and all this stuff. And I'm just like, how can this woman call herself a conservative? Because she's parroting all the talking points of the radical left and the Marxists and the pro-Islamic jihadists. And yet I repeat myself because all of those people are one and the same, more or less. And it's really sad to see that there are people who are so vehemently anti-Israel that they would like to see Israel disappear, because that's really what they're calling for. And she went on to say, this Miss California lady went on to say that, well, after all, the Jews killed Jesus. Well, you know what? Jesus was a Jew. They were crucifying one of their own. And the idea that you would want to punish all Jews who living today because Jews 2,000 years ago murdered our Lord and Savior, and he allowed himself to be murdered so that he could pay the price for our sin. So they were doing God's will, in a sense, when they murdered Jesus. Jesus knew that was going to happen, and he agreed that, with the Lord, and said, "Not my will, but thine be done, O Lord." Okay? So the fact that people try to somehow malign modern day Jews for that is just nonsensical. And it's really unfortunate to see something like that coming from people who claim to be conservatives. It's just really unfortunate. Now, Tucker Carlson has had an ongoing feud with Mike Huckabee. Mike Huckabee is a Zionist, as am I, and a Christian Zionist at that. And Tucker Carlson had said that there's nobody on earth that he loathes more than Christian Zionists, which makes you kind of go like, really? I mean, Hamas, you don't loathe them as much as Christian Zionists? Other terrorists around the world, ISIS, Al-Jawlani, all his folks, you don't abhor what they're doing, but you abhor people who just say that Jews ought to have a place where they can call their own. I don't get that. And again, I want to say, I don't think that word means what you think it means. When you say Zionist, like it's an epithet, and all you're talking about are people who say, yeah, the Jews are an ethnic people group that have been persecuted everywhere they've lived around the globe for their entire history, unless they have had their own country. So they should be able to have their own country. That's logical to me. Just like I say the Kurds should have their own country. And the Armenians need their own country. And I mean, yeah, the Jews should have their own country. And that's what being a Zionist means. But they like to say, oh no, Zionism is all about colonialism and all about we're like, no, that's not what it's about. So anyway, I could go on and on about that, but I want to stop right there. And I want to get back to talking about what Iran is threatening. So as President Trump has been making noises like, hey, we want to let these negotiations play out. And Iran is saying, well, we'll negotiate, but we won't talk about what we're doing to our own people, massacring our own people. We'll only talk about partially limiting some of our nuclear ambitions. Not all of them, not giving up the highly enriched uranium we already have or anything like that, but we'll be willing to talk about some of that stuff. And President Trump is kind of like, well, we might have to make a concession or two to Iran in this, whatever. Well, Bibi Netanyahu is in Washington today and is going to be talking to President Trump specifically about that. Like, while you're out there making concessions, maybe you should talk to the Israelis first, and maybe not make concessions that we perceive to be as a red line. And so that, again, the red line is not giving up their nuclear program in its entirety, to include the highly enriched uranium they already have. Their red line is stopping funding and facilitating of their proxies that surround Israel. Those are two major red lines that Israel has. And the big red line is Iran cannot be allowed to rebuild its capacity to fire missiles at Israel. And they are already deep into doing that. Apparently, they are very rapidly rebuilding their missile capacity. That's a red line for Israel. And Israel has very good intel inside Iran. And so if what Netanyahu said before he took off was that he's going to be sharing some intelligence that the Mossad has collected out of Iran that shows that they are rapidly rebuilding their capacity to strike Israel. And that right there by itself crosses a red line and is enough for Israel to decide to unilaterally strike Iran if the United States isn't going to do something about it. Now, for its part, Iran, on one hand, is saying, oh, no, we can be reasonable. We'll talk, which is their modus operandi forever. You know, let's just pretend we're going to talk and try to draw out the negotiations as long as we can. In the meantime, they're putting out videos like this one. I'm going to turn the audio off because it's just loud and annoying. But so, whoop, there we go. So this is an AI generated video that was put out by Iran showing the USS Abraham Lincoln. That's one of our aircraft carriers that's in the area right now. And what they're showing are Iranian drones taking off in swarms and firing missiles and drones at American shipping. Again, this is all AI generated. So you can see these massive volleys of missiles taking off. Meanwhile, there's people in the foreground that are having coffee or something. I'm not sure what that means. And those missiles are firing at American ships. And oh my goodness, we're being massacred. Oh no, there's missiles everywhere. What are we going to do? And now the Iranian Navy comes with their little fast speedboats. And oh my goodness, what is the USS Abraham Lincoln ever going to do? Because they're just being swarmed by these missiles and drones and boats out there attacking American shipping, and they're going to sink the American ships. Look at them there. Every one of them is striking its target. The U.S. is not able to fend off these missiles and drones at all. And now here we have submarines from Iran that are sneaking up and firing torpedoes at the shipping that's left over, and they're hitting them below the waterline, and boom, all these Americans. Now there are Iranians dropping limpet mines in the ocean, in the Strait of Hormuz, probably stopping civilian traffic, et cetera, et cetera. And more missiles taking off. I mean, we can just fast forward on this. You understand what they're doing. And now Americans, and yay, Iran wins. Yay. We're great. And now Americans are being taken as prisoners after they surrendered in defeat. So this is me narrating what the Iranians are putting out. That's the videos the Iranians are putting out right now. But let's take a look at what's actually happening inside Iran. This is the aftermath of an explosion today in Tehran. And it was one of several. There were more than one of these. Turn that down. More than one of these explosions that happened across Tehran. And these explosions have been happening for several days. So there have been all across Iran these mysterious fires and explosions going off again, it's just really unfortunate that so many people in Iran smoke, because they're obviously smoking too close to things that are apparently flammable, and they're going up in flames everywhere. And I'm sure that Israel and the Mossad had nothing to do with that. Here's another video that the Iranians put out that shows American assets on military bases or air bases inside Israel. And again, I'll turn the audio off on that because now they're zooming in on, it looks like Jordan, Al Udeid Air Base maybe, and it's showing American F-35s on the tarmac there. Again, this is AI generated. This is not real. And so then if we fast forward a little bit, we will see, threats from Iran that they know where we're located and they will take out American assets in the region. Okay. So this is kind of a, we know where you live kind of video threat that says, we know that you've got assets on this base and we're going to be targeting that base. So these propaganda videos are meant to, I guess, to try to scare the United States into not attacking. I really doubt they will have that effect on President Trump, because everybody can see that these are laughable, that Iran does not have the capability that they're boasting in these videos. So I have one more video I wanted to show before we get to that. Oh no, I already put that one up. Let's try that again. Oh, there we go. This is another Iranian video. They've put out videos like this in the past, right before the 12-day war, where they show, we have massive underground bunkers with armed guys hiding in them. And we've got a portrait of the Ayatollah and the leader of the Houthis and Qasem Soleimani, who's dead, and the Ayatollah Khamenei on the wall, and that we use for motivation before we go into battle. And here's what we go into battle on: motorcycles. We've got motorbikes that are gonna be just attacking left and right. I'm not sure how they're gonna attack Israel, because the motorbikes don't have enough range to make it to Israel. I don't know how they're going to be attacking, our assets at sea, but I guess, hey, it looks cool. And look, we've got guys with small arms, and we've got missiles that are underground, and we're going to roll those missiles out. And this is just so comical here. So they've got a good PR department. I have to hand it to them. They're doing pretty well at their PR, but again, I don't think they're actually scaring anybody. Now, one rumor that's been going around that I wanted to point out, that because Israel is actually taking it seriously, is the rumor that the Houthis have been in the process of smuggling their fighters into Jordan and Syria. And if you look at a map and say, well, how could they do that? Because the Houthis are not going to be able to drive across Saudi Arabia to get to Jordan, for example. So how are the Houthis going to get up there? Well, the route that they're threatening that they will take is to go up through the Suez Canal and come around into Lebanon, and then make their way into Syria, and then make their way into Jordan. And when they get enough guys together in Jordan, they're going to attack across the kind of poorly guarded fence between Jordan and Israel and conduct another October 7th attack inside Israel. There are some problems with that, in that they would be likely picked up at sea. We're going to notice if there are boatloads of Houthis making their way up through the Red Sea into the Mediterranean. But even if they managed to do that, or let's say that they instead were able to fly out of Sana'a and fly to a neutral third country like, I don't know, Turkey or something, and then fly from Turkey to Jordan and get to Jordan that way, Israel is not the same country it was on October 6, 2023. They are much better armed, much better prepared, and they are ready for whatever the Houthis would like to throw at them. So if they tried to assault the fence, first of all, that fence has been is in the process of being fortified pretty severely. So they're rebuilding it to look more like a Trump wall. So it's not going to be easy for them to get across. But even if they did, most of the area that touches Jordan is in the Judea and Samaria area. So the first people they would encounter would likely be Arabs, who are actually against Israel for the most part. And there are obviously some Israelis that live in Judea and Samaria as well. But those Israelis are very well armed at this point. A good friend of the podcast, Tim Miller, is in the process of setting up a training center that'll be able to train about 50,000 Israelis on firearms training a year. And so he's needs support for that. If you know anybody that's got some money that wants to support a training center in Judea and Samaria, please send me an email at info@holtonnews.com and I'll pass it on to Tim, because he's going to need a pretty sizable amount of money to cover that. But it's desperately needed in Israel. So the IDF in January conducted some training exercises in Judea and Samaria. And the premise of the training exercises was that the Houthis managed to smuggle several hundred or even several thousand fighters into Jordan, and they were all attacking across the fence. So the IDF is actually preparing for that. Now, what's the likelihood of it actually happening? I think it's pretty low, but there's a non-zero chance. And it is something that the IDF is going to keep its eye on for sure and be bolstering their defenses along that border with Jordan. Okay, so that's most of what I had to talk about today. We got a bunch of questions, and I want to get to those too. So let's go to our first question here. Is Bahrain likely to be safe? If you were to go to Bahrain right now, you would likely be safe unless you were walking around with a Israeli flag on your hat or something like that. You'd probably be fine. Next question. Hey guys, anyone see McGregor and Davis just now? Man, those guys just don't get it. I didn't see it, but it doesn't surprise me. McGregor's been, warning that, oh gosh, if we go to war with Iran, that the United States is going to lose. This time, I mean, maybe we trounced them in the 12-day war. Maybe Israel just handily defeated Iran during the 12-day war. But this time, Iran is going to clean house. And they're going to take out all of our ships in the Gulf, and they're going to destroy Tel Aviv. And I don't know why McGregor and his ilk just so badly want that to happen, but there is no evidence for what they're saying. The evidence is all that the United States and Israel will absolutely wipe the floor with Iran again if we go back to fighting. Okay, next question. Do you think the U.S. will attack the Iranian regime tomorrow on the 47th anniversary of the Islamist regime by the 47th president of the United States? I don't think the United States is really into symbolism like that. The Arabs, Muslims, they're into that numerical symbolism a lot, but the United States is not. And so I don't think that's going to be a factor in deciding whether or not we attack tomorrow. Again, I think that the factor has something to do with getting our vice president out of the region. And I think he'll be gone tomorrow. I think today is his last day over there. But again, the whole 47 thing, I'm not into those. What do they call that? Mnemonics or something? I'm not into that really. Next question. Who else giving money to, if not Israel, a Muslim state? I don't understand your question, so I'm going to move on. PC, thank you for the £9.99. Appreciate you. Look forward to seeing you in Armenia on our trip this year. Saint Evanikis says, how does the regular news media not report on any of this you're talking about? Well, it is being reported out there. You got to go looking for it, but you're right. The mainstream media is just not talking about Israel that much anymore. Part of that is a business decision because there are not as many people who are really interested in what's happening in Israel anymore. The United States, American citizens have a pretty short attention span when it comes to stuff like that. And so we're more concerned about, like the Epstein files or whatever right now. But yeah. Have we cut off all funds to any Palestinian organizations? Yes, but we have not cut off funds to the Taliban. We're still sending them about $40 million a week. And that is pretty gross. We ought to be not doing that for sure. Next question. Chuck, will you be going back to Israel again sometime soon? Could be. I don't make plans that far in advance, and so I'm not going in the next 2 days. I can tell you that. But other than that, I will go if I am called upon to go. Or if the war really breaks out and heats up, I'll probably end up over there again. Next question. Did Iran just test an ICBM that can reach the USA since about 7,000 miles from Iran? Iran does have ICBMs that can reach the United States. I'm not sure if they tested one recently, but they do have them. Next question. Would you not expect the pro-Palestinians to celebrate that a few civilians have died? It's almost like they don't care. Good point, Matthias. Next question. If the U.S. continues to wait too long, could there be no one left alive in Iran who's against the Ayatollah? No, because I would say about 90% of the people in Iran are against the Ayatollah, but not all of them are willing to go out and put their lives on the line to protest the Ayatollah. So I don't think they're going to kill Iran. The regime is not going to kill their way out of this problem. All right, next question. Have you seen the video from an Iranian citizen on Friday? Tragic. Yes, I have. And yes, it is tragic and we cannot show it on YouTube. But there are quite a few tragic videos coming out from Iran. One thing that we found out today is that Russia has been sending electronic warfare vehicles over to Iran. They've sent them maybe a half a dozen of them that they can use to find Starlink connections. So they just drive around Tehran and they home in on the Starlink connection. Then they kick in the door and shoot the people that have the Starlink. And so that's causing some trouble for getting more information out of Iran. Next question. What has changed in the past 24 hours with regard to the mass protest by the rank and file Iranian people in Iran? From my understanding, they are still protesting. They're still out in the streets protesting, and they're still being massacred. That is from talking to Iranian Kurds who had fled across the border into Syria or had family who were back in Iran that were giving them that information. They're just saying that it's not being reported as much, but it's still happening. Next question. What's your message to the youth that have abandoned all belief in God, and could they become believers later in life? Well, sure, gentle heathen. People can become believers at any time. We're just having this conversation with a Jewish friend who was kind of upset that we were talking to him about Jesus. He's like, I'm Jewish. I'm not going to convert. And it's like, well, if you understand that when a Christian talks to you about Jesus, about do you know Jesus? Have you submitted yourself to Jesus, that he is the Messiah? It's not because we're trying to denigrate your religion. It's because we truly believe that without Christ, you will spend eternity in hell. And you can call that, judgmental if you want, but we didn't make that up. That is part and parcel of the Christian gospel. And so the most loving thing I could do for you would be to describe to you what we call the Roman road, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and to encourage you to accept Christ as your Lord and Savior. Now, incidentally, if you're Jewish, you don't have to stop being Jewish to do that. There are lots and lots of Messianic Jews, even in Israel, around the world, who have just done their research and have said, you know what, I am a Jew, I believe in Judaism, but I also understand that Christ is the fulfillment of the Messiah and the Messianic prophecies that we have in Judaism. And so I'm going to submit myself to him as my Savior. So believe it or not, you can be both. And so please don't get offended if a Christian tries to talk to you about Jesus, tries to, proselytize you, as it were, because that literally is the most loving thing I could do for you, would be to share Jesus with you in my way of thinking. So take it for what it is. If somebody's talking to you about Jesus, don't get offended, but just say, okay, I understand. I understand. And maybe I don't agree. Maybe I don't want to give my heart over to Jesus and submit to his will for my life. And that's your prerogative. You have every ability to make that decision. And by sharing Jesus with you, I'm not trying to shove Jesus down your throat. I'm not trying to force you to convert. I can't force you to convert. All I can do is tell you what I have learned and what I know to be true from my own study, from my own perspective in reading the scriptures. And you can do with it what you will. But it should not be offensive to you for somebody to say, hey, you need Jesus. Anyway, I hope you get that. Next question. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Do you believe that much of the 20,000 civilian dead in Gaza can be directly contributed to Hamas and PIJ rocket misfires? Whether or not they are, many of them can be attributed to misfires by rockets, all of them, every single civilian death in Gaza can be attributed to Hamas because of October 7th. Because there was not war between Israel and Hamas on October 6th. And Israel didn't start this. So the fact that Israel had to go in and ensure that Hamas couldn't do it again, and in that process, some civilians died, all of that is at the feet of Hamas. Next question. Was Iran involved in Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping? Is Trump conceding? I've not heard that. I'm not sure why Iran would care about adopting the aging mother of a television host. That doesn't make any sense to me. If Iran has sleeper cells in the United States, and we believe they do, and they wanted to, strike the United States in retaliation for whatever we're about to do to Iran, it's more likely going to take the form of a massive multi-cell terror attack that takes place in a coordinated fashion across multiple cities, states, or jurisdictions in the United States. And we need to be prepared for that. And I would say that, folks, if you are not prepared with defensive tools whenever you go out and about in the United States, then you are a liability and not an asset to your community. And so you need to get armed and trained and be willing and able to make people safer around you, because it's just a matter of when, not if, a big, massive multi-cell terror attack happens in the United States. It's going to happen. And so if you happen to be there when it happens and you don't have the ability to put a stop to it permanently, then I would say that you're not an asset to the community. Or if you don't have medical care, let's say I don't want to carry a firearm. Okay, fine. Get some medical training, carry a tourniquet, carry a stop the bleed kit, learn how to do that so that if you are in a mass casualty event, you can start saving people's lives. Bottom line is we should all be willing to put ourselves at risk for the benefit of our countrymen. And we should plan ahead so that we can be more capable and competent to do so if we're ever called upon. Next question. How elaborate was that operation done by Mossad with the detonating pagers? It was, well, when you read about it, it was amazing. They set up shell companies. They had salesmen go and convince Hezbollah that they needed these pagers and got them to buy them from the right place. And then they snuck the explosives into the pagers in a way that they wouldn't be easily found, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's just amazing. That was just a incredible operation. Next question. Does communism and its ideology create brave soldiers or not? I would say no, because communism forces people to do things they don't want to do. And by and large, if you're being forced to go to war, you're not going to be as motivated to fight hard as somebody who's doing it because they're protecting their loved ones. Communism makes the individual feel very small and unimportant. A small, unimportant person is not going to be as motivated to fight hard as a person who believes in the primacy of the individual. Next question. These propaganda videos from Iran, do you think they're arrogant enough to believe these videos, or is it plain scare tactics? Just scare tactics. I think if they believe what they're selling, then it's pretty, they need to get out more. That would be crazy. I don't think they believe it. They saw how badly they got hurt during the 12-day war, and they know that's what's going to happen again. That's why they're pulling out all the stops to try to keep it from happening at all. They're willing to do anything except for give up their nuclear ambitions and stop funding their proxies and stop killing their own people. We'll do anything except that, right? Next question. My stepdaughter is a staff sergeant in the Maryland Reserves. Her unit is being shipped to Bosnia. Does that have anything to do with this, with Iran? Not really. I mean, you've heard, if you watched the video I did a few days ago about how all of these conflicts are related somehow. What's going on in Bosnia is more of a regional thing. And so I wouldn't say that it's necessarily tied to what's happening in Iran. However, Iran published a map today that shows all the U.S. military bases that are within range of their missiles, and the base in Bosnia is certainly within range. All of the bases, U.S. bases in Western or Eastern Europe, are in range of Iranian missiles. So their warning there is you better be able to defend all of those bases, which I don't think we've got enough air defenses to do that. So that's something to be concerned about for sure. Next question. Do you believe that only negotiations should be surrender terms for the regime, like leaving while it's still on Earth? Yeah. If I was asked to go and negotiate with the Iranians, I would not be walking in there saying, how can we compromise with you to get to a acceptable solution? I would be going in there and saying unconditional surrender, and the regime will step down, or we're coming in. That's what I would say if I was president, but I'm not president. So next question. How do they drive underground without the threat of carbon monoxide poisoning? Oh, they have big fans set up that blow, circulate the air in those tunnels. So they plan for that. If the previous missile volleys and midnight hammer strike were measured and coordinated, will this possible coming conflict be more all out and unrestrained from both sides? I think likely so. I think that this is likely going to be orders of magnitude more than what we saw in the 12-day war on both sides. Do the people of Iran have their destinies in their own hands now? No, not really, because they don't have any weapons. And so they can't fight the regime, and they're just dying. Why did Israel meet with Saddam's daughter in Syria alongside al-Jilani, who's an ISIS leader? Israel did have meetings with al-Jilani to try to negotiate essentially a truce before they go to war. So obviously al-Jilani doesn't like Israel, but the United States has put a lot of pressure on him and said, if you want support from the U.S., you've got to make peace with Israel. And so they met to talk about that. I don't know how far they got necessarily, but that's what they were talking about. And he's not a leader of the he's actually been fighting against because they think the people of think that July not extreme enough. Next question. Is it ironic that the Ayatollah came to power through a revolution that his subjects are now revolting against him? Well, that was a long time ago, so it's a whole different group of people now. But yeah, next question. Is it, we already got that one. Next question. Was there a stand-down order in Israel on 10/7? I'm a firm supporter of Israel, God's chosen people. I don't understand how there were no troops available to help these people. No, there was not a stand-down order. The reason that there were no troops going down there for like 7 hours was a mix of hubris, which is deadly, toxic, and it is unfortunately sort of traditional for the Israelis to become very arrogant and proud and not believe that their enemies have what it takes to actually hurt them at all until they actually do. In almost every major conflict Israel has ever been in, they've been surprised at the beginning because they didn't believe that their enemies were strong enough to actually hurt them. So there was that. The other issue is that they were getting signals out of their intel was telling them that there was a likelihood of an attack from Hezbollah in the north. And so they had moved most of their troops up to the far north. And so when they started getting calls from Gaza, they were like, yeah, it can't be that bad. That could be a feint to pull us away from the north. And there was look, people have already resigned because there were some spectacularly bad decisions made, but there was not a stand down order. There definitely was not. Next question. 8,000 Indonesia troops in Gaza. Yeah, I saw that. Israel Hayom was reporting today that Indonesia may be sending thousands of troops to be part of the peace force in Gaza. I'm not sure what Israel's not real excited about that because Indonesia is a Muslim country as well. But that's what's being reported. Next question. Regarding the Kurds, Israel has been doing as much as possible for them. It is the USA that's abandoned them and holds Israel back from helping because the USA is supporting Syrian leaders. Why? I think because the current administration in the United States is being misled terribly by their envoy to the Middle East, Tom Barak. Tom Barak is essentially an agent of Qatar. And so he has counseled President Trump very, very badly on what we should be doing and essentially sold him on the idea of supporting al-Jilani to reunite Syria as one country and let it stop being a failed state. The only problem with that is you're going to reunite it under a black flag of extremism. And the true nature of al-Jilani and his forces is being hidden from us at this time. And I know that from having just come back from Syria. Next question. Tom Barak said last week that he doesn't want Kurds in Iraq as regional government. Why is the USA working against Kurds in the region? That's, again, Tom Barak. You just answered your own question. I believe that's why, and it's wrong. It's immoral. It's evil what the United States is doing to the Kurds because we made commitments to the Kurds. If you fight for us to defeat the black flag people, we will support you going forward. And now we're just yanking the rug out from under them. And that is evil. It's wrong. Shouldn't do it. Next question. What's the retreat from Afghanistan the biggest blunder in U.S. Army history? I don't know. There's pretty stiff competition for that title. But it certainly was a major blunder. The question is, I mean, all of those are in the past. What blunders are we making right now that we should stop making? And I think one of them is abandoning the Kurds. Next question. Is Beeper Guy merch incoming to your store? We've talked about it. We've designed some sort of prototypes, but we haven't got them in the store yet. I don't know. I can ask our merch people what we're doing with that. But we do have some new merch that's coming out shortly as soon as I hit 250,000 subscribers, which could be any day now because we're at 249-ish right now. Next question. Chuck, I've heard over 100,000 have been slain in Iran. If this is true, will the world stand up to that regime soon? Well, that may be a little bit of an overstatement, but I think the numbers are, there are credible numbers coming out in the 60,000 range. Either way, it's terrible. It's a lot. And it should, I mean, because the U.S. president has already said that we would come to their aid, I believe we should go to their aid because he obligated us to do so. But the question is, what is his word worth? And we're going to find out soon what his word is actually worth. Next question. Will China intervene in case of war with Iran? No, they will not. Next question. Are most Iranians waiting for Trump to help us promise to strike Iran and get the ball rolling? Yes, they are, because they need that push. They don't have any weapons, as I said. So they need somebody with weapons to come in and support them. Next question. Do you think that Iraq will join Iran if there's an attack? No, the Iraqi military will not. There are Iranian-backed militias in Iraq called the Hashishabi that may attack, likely will attack U.S. bases in Iraq, but that's about all they can do, and they're not that powerful. So it's not like they're going to overrun and kill a bunch of American troops or anything like that. That would be a real outlier if that happened. Next, I've heard that the U.S. have reached an oil deal with Iran in return, the United States would postpone the attack. Is this true? I've not heard that. One interesting thing that I did hear right before going live today is that Venezuela has just sold a large shipment of Venezuelan oil to a refinery in Israel. So Venezuela is now selling oil to Israel. That is substantial. That's a big deal right there. And so let's have more of that, please. Next. I'm from Iran. People are worried about staged attack by the U.S. Your thought? You mean Iran doing a false flag and staging an attack and saying, oh, the United States just blew this up and now we're going to go to war with Israel. I don't know that Iran needs to do that, because if they're going to go, if they're going to strike Israel, they're going to strike Israel. And I don't think they feel like they need to manufacture justification like maybe Russia would do, because Iran really doesn't care what the whole world thinks. Next question. Iran has a high number of Azerbaijanis. Do you know if most of them oppose the IRGC? Yes, they do. Just like the Kurds in the northwest, the Azeris in the northeast of Iran, these are Iranian citizens who happen to be of Azeri descent, are a thorn in the IRGC's side. And so, yeah, they don't support the Iranian regime. Next question. So God only loves Christians because an ancestor wanted to know the difference between good and evil. Not sure what you mean by that, Electric Universe. God loves everyone, and especially loves non-Christians. The Bible says that while we were his enemy, Christ died for us, meaning people that are non-Christians are enemies of God, and yet God loved them so much, he sent his son to die for them. So no, God doesn't only love Christians. God loves everyone and does not want anyone to spend eternity apart from him. And that's why Christians share the gospel, because we want you to know how you can avoid spending eternity in hell. And by our belief system, the truth of the matter is the only way to do that is to accept the fact that Christ is Savior and Lord, that Christ died for your sins, and then submit yourself to his will for your life. And that's an act of love for us to share that with you. And it's an act of love, obviously. It's the greatest act of love ever, for Christ to send his son to die for people who were his enemy. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm preaching, but you asked. Next question. Is it true Tom Barak wants to revoke any the Iraqi Kurdish government? I've heard that, and that would be a real big mistake, and it would cause a war. It would cause a big war. Kurds are not going to give that up easily. Next question. Are children from Ukraine being taken by Russia by force and rehoming to families in Russia? Yes, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children have been kidnapped by Russia and given to foster families inside Russia. So yes, that is very true. I've done a lot of reporting on that. Next question. Why is the USA working with Saddam's daughters? You know, Saddam committed genocide against Kurds in Iraq. Yes. I can't answer that question. I don't know why they feel the need to have any negotiations at all with anybody associated with Saddam. That said, I don't know that saying the fact that she's Saddam's daughter means that she wants to annihilate the Kurds. You know, she can have different ideas than her dad did, but still, you know, it doesn't look good. Next question. Do you think Trump's economic warfare strategy will work versus missiles and bullets? Not against Iran. Might work on Russia if we really pulled out all the stops, but it's not going to work against Iran. Next question. I came in later. Are we striking Iran or not? I believe we will at some point, but we haven't yet. Next question. Thank you, Bruce Davis. I appreciate that. $1.99. You're very kind. Do you think the buildup of units by the U.S. is enough for serious conflict? Yes. We have enough over there to annihilate Iran several times over. I mean, we've got a bunch of B-52 bombers over there now. B-52s are nuclear capable. We could turn Iran into a sea of glass if we wanted to. The question is, do we want to? All right, next question. Is it today, Israel president meeting with Trump? It's either today or tomorrow. He's coming to the United States today, and he might have dinner with him tonight and then have a meeting with him tomorrow, would be my guess. Next question. Have you ever met or come close to meeting the mysterious beeper guy? Yeah, I did actually talk to him one time, and he didn't speak a word of English. So we didn't it was a short conversation. But yeah, I did go down and meet him once. Does the defeat of the IRGC mean the fall of Hamas and Hezbollah? Very much so. I think, I mean, they may not collapse completely right away, but removing their funding is definitely cutting the head off the snake. So next question. Thank you, Median. I appreciate that 50-pound super sticker. Very kind of you. Thank you very much. Why Israel wants to attack Iran so bad? Again, because there are red lines. Iran cannot have the ability to strike Israel like it did last time. And Israel's not going to go through all the hassle of striking Iran in the 12-day war, seeing a bunch of 40-something Israeli citizens killed in that conflict, and let it all be for nothing. They're not going to go back to the way it was before. That's why. Would your guess be the strikes on Iran come within a week or two, or it will take months like Venezuela? I don't think that we want to keep all the troops we have in the region there for another month while we wait for Ramadan to be over. So I think it's more likely that the strikes will happen before Ramadan, but a lot of it just depends on President Trump, what he decides to do. He could change his mind like that and then just send everybody home. I don't think he will, but he could. Next question. Is this a real fox fur hanging on the wall? Yes, that fox fur it's a red fox from Alaska. And so, yes, that's a real fox fur over there. That's a real deer right there. It's a real moose up there, and it's a real bear over there, and a real elk up there in the house. But I didn't shoot any of them. They all came from other hunters who I purchased those mounts from, because I'm not a hunter. I spent enough time hunting human beings in my career that it doesn't seem sporting to me to shoot a defenseless animal. So there's that. Next question. Iran will be defeated, but at what cost to Israel from missiles? Well, it'll cost Israel something. Some missiles will likely get through. But remember, last time Israel shot down 93% of the missiles and about almost 100% of the drones that Iran sent over. And Israel is better prepared now than it was during the 12-day war. So I don't think Israel's going to get hurt worse than they did during the 12-day war. But it's likely that something will get through. Next question. Do you think China will invade Taiwan at the same time Iran will attack Israel? No, I don't think China is quite ready to do that yet. Next question. Who is the beeper guy? Well, if you were watching this show during the beginning of the war in Israel, when I was reporting from Israel, there was a guy there was a parking lot right below my apartment. So I would do my lives out on the balcony of the apartment looking at the Cassia Hotel. The parking lot of the Cassia Hotel was right below me, 7 floors down. And there was a guy that had a van, big van, that he would transport the refugees who were living in that hotel around to different places. And every night during my live, he would decide to come and back his van all the way across that parking lot. He couldn't just pull up and back right in. He had to pull all the way across the parking lot and then back all the way across very slowly. And that guy had the largest backup beeper. I mean, the loudest backup beeper I have ever heard on a vehicle in my entire life. And it would, as soon as he started backing up, like I had to just stop talking because you couldn't hear me over it. And I'm 7 floors up. And so it just became this joke where everybody would go, beeper guy, and they'd all freak out. And so if you missed it, that just means you haven't been watching me long enough. And you know what? Every time I go back to Israel, I get that same apartment, and that beeper guy is still there 2 years later. So for 2 solid years, every night, that guy's been backing his van all the way across the parking lot, which is crazy. Next question. Why are we using units blockading Cuba while they're needed in Iran? Well, apparently they don't think they're needed in Iran. We've got units blockading Haiti right now as well. We still have a bunch of stuff off the coast of Venezuela right now. So we've got a big enough Navy to do Iran and something else at the same time. Next question. Rubina says, Alan's question, Nyan, what is the likelihood of Russia and the use of nuclear weapons with him constantly losing soldiers and equipment? Oh, will Vladimir Putin use nuclear weapons? I don't think he will, because using a nuclear weapon would mean that nuclear weapons would be used likely against him, and that would be the end of his regime. So I don't think he'll do it. Nuclear weapons only work as a defensive weapon. Next question. Why is it okay for Israel to attack Iran, but they cannot be allowed to defend themselves? That's a rhetorical question, so I'll just let that sit. Next question. Super sticker, thank you for the Canadian dollar, peso, whatever that is, $6.99. I appreciate you, Carrie. Thank you very much. It's awesome to have people from Canada who actually will listen to us and because right now there's a lot of Canadians who don't like America very much right now. And I can't say I blame them, really. I mean, America's been kind of unfriendly to Canada lately. So sorry about that. How was your career in the Army or Navy or whatever you were at? How was it? It was challenging. It was stretching. Let's see. I was 4 years in the U.S. Army Rangers, and then I left the Rangers and got into the Air National Guard and flew helicopters for 4 years while I was in college. So 8 years total in the military, and it was a very good experience for me. I wouldn't want to do it again. There's a lot of suffering and misery in there, but it definitely was worth doing. All right. That's the last question. Thank you very much for watching the Hot Zone, folks. Please go to chuckholton.com. You get a lot more content over there and early access to stuff and phone calls with me and access. You get first dibs on our tours and everything. So go over to chuckholton.com, become a supporter. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you next time. Take care.